Welcome back to the Hirewell Hot Corner, where sports and recruitment meet. I am your host, Dan Spatel, joined as always by my Iron Man co-host, Louie Marisi. Louie, great to see you again. Let's jump right in. What's going on in your world and the world of sports today?
In Chicago, it's been below zero wind chill, so trying to stay warm. Got to work from the couch where the heated blanket is. Got to keep the costs on the house down with the heating bill. But as far as sports go, lots going on. Obviously, playoff football, very exciting. Some great games already. Nothing has been like too much of a blowout. Some teams like your Steelers played the Bills tough, exciting game, and when it was postponed due to weather as well, we're all experiencing it. So it's been a fun time to be a sports fan, minus the Blackhawks. Connor Bedard broke his jaw and had surgery, but just forget about that right now.
He'll be back. He'll be back. The Steelers did what most of us expected and were a first-round exit to a far superior Bills team. They did. The final score was a little closer than I thought it would be, so I guess take what we get. I am firmly jumping on the Lions and the Bills bandwagon from here on out. I think a Lions-Bills Super Bowl would be the coolest thing ever because both fan bases absolutely deserve it, and I think everyone would be happy regardless of the outcome. Just my opinion.
Hey, I feel it. I feel it. As someone who, Lions are in the Bears division, so don't really care. Um, I got a lot of ties to friends in Buffalo. For them, majority of them would like to, see them win, but I don't know if I could handle dealing with, their egos if they do. But I think I'm just going to keep rocking with the Niners. I mean, I started the year, I'm like, on paper, they have what I think is the best team. Christian McCaffrey, Kittle, adding Chase Young, great defense. I even think Brock Purdy is serviceable to the highest extent without actually being an elite quarterback. They're good. They got Debo, they got Ayuk. Like they're built for this. So that's who I think wins the Super Bowl. Who I want to doesn't really matter. The Bears aren't in it. So
The Niners are probably the most well-rounded, deep roster, I would say, in the NFL. So should be interesting to see how that goes for them. We're talking about playoffs, things that are still happening. Let's talk about kind of things that aren't happening anymore. I think, was it last week? It was a huge coaching turnover. It was the end of multiple eras. We had Bill Belichek and the Patriots are no longer a tandem force. Nick Saban retired, arguably the greatest college dynasty in the last X number of years. Puts him right up there with Bear Bryant from Alabama. And Pete Caroll and the Seahawks no longer working together. That's three huge changes at the coaching between college and the NFL.
yeah, I mean it's as a fan of both, obviously NFL and college, it's synonymous. Those guys with their teams, like you expect it every year, expect them to compete every year, and to know that someone else is going to be calling shots on those sidelines is I don't know if it's not comfortable. Like it's just we've gotten so used to it, that stability, and I think your guy. Well, I'll let you chime on. It's good to see that he's coming back.
Yep. Seems that Mike Tomlin will be returning to the Steelers for 2024. Assuming that's the case, I haven't seen anything that would dispute that. In some level, it's nice to have stability. When it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers, stability at coaching has been huge. We've had three head coaches since 1960. I mean, it's legitimately insane. You don't get numbers like that. Apparently, the Packers have franchise quarterbacks one after the next because Jordan
Had
Love is apparently the guy, and
you
they
had to
just
go
keep
there, huh? You
just
had to
keep
go there.
reloading. It's impressive.
It is.
Uh,
It is.
but and Mike Tomlin's floor is apparently 9 wins, so we have a lot. There could be a lot worse things happening for Steelers fans. And in terms of Saban and Pete Carroll, their careers are ending in terms of coaching. Pete Carroll's going to go work at the front office for the Seahawks, which is really awesome. Bill Belichick's not done. He's interviewing for head coaching jobs. What'll be weird, we've talked about seeing players in different uniforms. Seeing Belichick on any sideline that's not the Patriots just feels so strange.
Yeah, granted, he had a whole career before the Patriots, but like when you think of Bill Belichick, it's Patriots, the cutoff hoodie in the snow, Tom Brady, Gronk, Edelman, Amendola, like winning titles. Like that's what you think of. Like it's a whole period of football that is Bill Belichick and the Patriots and all the pieces. So there's whispers about him going to Atlanta. You mentioned he has a close relationship with, I don't know if it's their owner or CEO or whoever. That's a weird spot, but also makes sense. Personal relationships. I think they're underutilizing a lot of pretty solid pieces like Kyle Pitts, Drake London. So I Could I see that? Yes. I thought he'd probably go to more of a contender that maybe is underachieving, but regardless, yeah, it's just weird. It's going to be uncomfortable for especially the fans of those teams, the Seahawks, and Alabama and Patriots and all that. So just going to have to get used to it. And like always, things happen to change over time.
I like the concept of stability. It's something it's huge in the locker rooms and within the organizations. How do we talk about stability in recruiting, in the job search, in any of that, Louie?
Well, stability is something that a lot of folks have not been able to find in roles. We've seen the tech market be a roller coaster as it always is. It's high at points where all these new startups bringing headcount on, and then they lose funding, and it seems like it all happens all at once. And as a candidate, your resume is starting to get filled with 4 jobs in 3 years of 8, 9 month stints, and it's starting to work against you to always want to be in these what I would call the sexy industry that is the software as a service and technology. Now, it's great. I'm not sitting here and saying that it's not, but stability needs to start climbing the ladder as far as priority on the priority wire when it comes to choosing jobs. Is it a long-term play? Because we're finding that long-term plays can either make or break you when it comes to reviewing even a resume or getting you in a door or closing a door. So stability as far as the industry you're in, the role you're in, the company you're in, I think it needs to be at top next to, compensation is always a big one.
So I think it's an interesting concept to look at because you look at older generations, previous workforces where stability was key, longevity was what you did. You had, in some cases, one person working at one company for 30, 40 years. That was the norm. Lately, the trend in the younger workforce has been to jump from company to company every few years to maximize your growth and earning potential. We talk about money is obviously a driving factor. That's been more consistent lately of people having a role every 18 months, 2 years, 3 years, and jumping around to get up the career ladder that way because they weren't seeing long-term growth and stability within the company they were at. It's two sides of a coin. You got one side is people voluntarily jumping around year to year, and then you've got the layoff side. People having to go and get another job 8 months, 9 months after going through a job search once again. And so it's just kind of figuring out, will we see a shift in people jumping voluntarily as we see more and more big name companies and more of these layoffs within specific markets?
Yeah, it's yeah, like you mentioned, the voluntary versus unfortunate layoffs, like jumping just to find a better base salary, and it kind of comes back to bite you in the ass. I've seen it firsthand from some friends of mine. But yeah, like being someone like myself who has taken on kind of a niche market of the sales part of our business in the manufacturing industrial side, that side did not really take a hit at all during COVID. People were still hiring because these products, these services, they are necessary. So start thinking about what's a nice to have versus what's a need to have from a product, from a service, from a company, from an industry, and develop, your targeted search, maybe away from something that is one of 100 other products that are similar on the market. It might be very niche, but at the same time, it's a niche that is needed. So I've been trying to work with folks who, are open to potentially looking into some of these more industrial manufacturing companies, because you mentioned earlier, the demographic of these folks who are in these spaces have been there 25, 30 years. But you know what? They're starting to retire. So that's why these companies are hiring, looking for that next person who wants that 25, 30-year relationship and roll and move up within this company to take it to the next level, to take it to the next, 30, 40 years. So it's this value based, like what you're prioritizing, and maybe looking outside the box of what you're normally looking into.
Yeah, for sure. You touched on that being a priority, and manufacturing as a whole, largely you could say it's recession proof. It's roles that will always be there. It's a necessary piece of our economy and our day-to-day life. Finding other industries that the jobs should and always will need to be there. I was in healthcare recruiting during COVID. I had a pretty secure job. The healthcare workers were of the utmost importance. When most people couldn't go to work, healthcare workers had to go to work. And
Yeah.
so I considered myself fortunate to be recruiting in that space at that time. Healthcare is not going anywhere. It can't and it won't. It's another industry to consider. If you're looking for a new role and you're wondering how do I get out of this rut or this loop of constantly seeing turnover, these are just two examples. I'm sure there are other industries we could hit on that have pretty strong stability in terms of longevity and lower turnover rates. There's always turnover rates in certain areas. And then you can look at stability from a company standpoint. You touched on there's a lot of these startups, and startups are very volatile. They can be awesome. They can be great. They're not for everyone. You look at some of these stalwart companies. You've been here 100 years, grown from this to this, generation to generation, whatever that may be. And I know right now there are some large companies who are going through layoffs, Microsoft, Google, and you hate to see it because you thought they were pretty secure, pretty safe in their action. There are still plenty of companies out there that have a history, are growing the right way, doing so consistently, and are looking for people to jump into that longevity. And that's what the last point I want to touch on is how can candidates kind of look for this in a job search? Interview questions. Ask about it in an interview. There are companies who outwardly and proactively talk about longevity and growth. We have clients who are looking for people long-term, and they even say so very, very clearly in the job description that we have for them. Louie, what kind of questions can candidates ask a manager to kind of help them figure out, well, this place is stable. This is going to work?
Yeah, I think going into career progression will do a little bit of telling. If someone has the bandwidth to stay there long term, they'll have a career path. So asking questions like, you know, what does advancement look like in 5 years and 10 years or whatever? And then on the flip side, be blunt. Ask when's the last time you guys had to do a mass layoff, if ever, and really vet these companies like they're vetting you. And don't be afraid to ask some of those hard questions and draw the line in the sand. If they're like, yeah, we've gone through it once every 3 years, well, that's kind of a red flag. It's like the dating world. Like there's a red flag. It's not for everyone, but you gotta look at it from that kind of standpoint and make sure that you're making a decision based on what you're seeing, what you're being presented, and obviously fact, and not just because you need a job and all that.
Got to look out for your best interests. It's always important. 2-minute drill, Louie. Let's take it home. We touched on Bill Belichek and kind of where we think he'll end up going. Where do you think Jim Harbaugh is going to land in the NFL?
I don't know if I'm missing if he declared he's leaving Michigan, but I think he's staying at Michigan. If not Michigan, the Chargers. Those are the two options, I think.
He has interviewed at the Chargers. I believe he also interviewed for the Falcons as well. He's already hired an agent. I think he's going to go somewhere in the NFL. I think LA makes a lot of sense. Be interesting to see. Tennessee could be a contender. I don't really know if that fits him, but who knows? Any crazy predictions for this weekend's playoff games?
Yeah, granted, so I think the Buccaneers are going to beat the Lions. First off, the Bucks, I love the hype around them after this past win. When it comes to from a hockey standpoint, if the team that has the bye plays a team that went to Game 7 the prior round, usually that team comes out and is more well-oiled than the team that's just been sitting for a week or two. So I think the Bucks are going to come out and beat the Lions. I think that's my wild prediction. I love Baker Mayfield too.
Wow. I'm going to look for the Bills to get over the Mahomes hump, take him out at home. He doesn't play much on the road in the playoffs. Should be another cold, terrible weather weekend. Look for them to run it back and make themselves to another AFC championship.
Yeah, let's face it. Any football fan is going to be tuning into that. It's two of the best quarterbacks in the league. It's just a great rivalry that's came about. So I'm excited to watch that for sure.
100%. Well, on behalf of Louie and myself, thank you once again for tuning into the Hirewell Hot Corner. Please do join us again in 2 weeks for our next episode. And as always, stay classy, LinkedIn.